think this is the point at which I make Distraction by Bruce Sterling a do not finish, or at least a seriously in hiatus. I just can't keep reading it. I am not enjoying it. I'm not impressed. The third person narrative means that the reader is completely dissociated from any attempted character. They're not really good characters. Their attempts kind of woeful, really. The writing is patchy. It's incredibly patchy. It's sometimes so tongue-in-cheek that you feel like the author is mocking the things he's writing, and I don't know, maybe it is. How you can be that tongue-in-cheek without actually drilling a hole through to the outside, I really don't know. And then other times it calms down and actually has a halfway decent narrative style, but then it grandstands and it just lurches from one type of writing to another with no ability for the poor reader to get a sense of the rhythm. Now, narrative that lurches from one type to another, that can work if the different narrative styles are meant to emphasize a place, a character, a theme, but it doesn't work here because it's random and it seems to have no purpose. So this is the winner of the Arthur C. Clarke Award in 2000, I think it was. The book's copyrighted 1998. I think for 1998 there's some good science concepts in here. And originally I thought that that's maybe why it won this award. I didn't know what the Arthur C. Clarke Award was for, so I went and checked it out online. Apparently, the only requirement of the Arthur C. Clarke Award is that it's science fiction and published in the United Kingdom the previous year. So that's it. It doesn't have to be a good book. It doesn't have to have good writing. It doesn't have to have good themes. It just has to be science fiction, published in the United K the year before, and can get nominated. I think you get 5 nominees and someone's chosen from it. This one was chosen. Scuppered if I know why. That's all I can say. There's no real characters. Our main protagonist is Oscar, but he is a caricature. When you start out, all you really learn about him is how he dresses. And he doesn't even dress himself. He's dressed by a member of his crew. Oh, I'll get back to the crew. And so the first description of Oscar is getting out of a campaign bus at a roadblock. And it goes into minute detail about what he's wearing. And I don't know, maybe for an American or a politician or a 90s American politician something, maybe all of this garment description would make some sort of sense. I mean, as an Australian, if you're unlucky enough to be having to go to real estate openings, whether it's rental or sales, you walk into one and you can instantly tell who the real estate agent is. A real estate agent in Australia dresses like a real estate agent, and there's never any doubt about which one at the opening is a real estate. Maybe by describing all his clothes here, that's what Bruce Sterling is doing, and having described his clothes, now any American political aficionado now knows something about Oscar's character that I didn't ever get. I mean, aside from that, he's a complete stereotype, really. Okay, so there are good things about this book that I originally thought might be why it was nominated. Some of the science concepts are good. They're especially good for 1998. Some of them are getting a little bit maybe hackneyed now. The original Roadblock is an interesting political commentary, and I really think this is all meant to be political commentary. Politics aren't always boring, but in this book they are. They're really boring. I can't tell if he's talking about modern politics or 1990s politics or maybe future politics. I can't even remember when this is meant to be set, and I don't really care. Most of this book can be summed up by I just don't really care about any of the stereotypical attempts at characters, about the writing, about the long political monologues. Everyone here monologues. There's no dialogue. There really isn't any dialogue at all. It's all Oscar monologues, Greta monologues, someone else monologues, huge monologues, small monologues, monologue. Anyway, as I was saying, in terms of science fiction, there are some good concepts. The roadblock at which we first hear all about the coat that Oscar is wearing or whatever is because the US Air Force is so underfunded that the local airbase has to create a roadblock and basically do highway robbery on anyone who wants to get through the roadblock. They call it a bake sale. And they sell baguettes or something for hundreds of dollars, and this is how they raise money for their airbase. And roadblocks are apparently taken for granted all over the USA now because so many places are underfunded. That's an interesting concept. Around about page 50 or 60, which was where I nearly gave up a few days ago, there's a good concept. So there's a talking, self-guided construction system. It's good, it's interesting, it builds itself, blocks tell you where to put it, so basically it's allowing anyone to do construction. And this could have been interesting. Oscar and his crew starting to build a hotel to be their base. They're starting to build a hotel to be their base because they've been inside this ecodome, and the ecodome is also a really good idea. So biodome that was created for biohazard research, at some point it became something else. It's using DNA stocks to clone and recreate extinct animals and plants. It's a good site and it's a good concept, and it's underutilized because it's basically there to provide Greta as a love interest for Oscar and a chance to monologue a lot about his plans of how to demolish it, get political acknowledgement, I don't know, something or other, to create more monologues, I guess. What were some of the other interesting concepts? I made notes because I was bored enough reading this book that the note writing about the book was actually more interesting than the actual reading part of the book. My goal, incidentally, was to reach page 100, and if I managed to reach page 100 and I still wasn't enjoying it, I was going to stop. I'm now at page 135. It's definitely going into hiatus, long-term hiatus. Okay, what's this note? I can't even remember what that note was meant to be about. I mentioned earlier the crew, and all through this book, crew is misspelled. I guess that's an attempt to create some kind of world building, but misspelling crew as Krewe doesn't world build for me. It's just annoying. I think for the first 100 pages, we're trying to establish Oscar as a serious player in political systems. Because of the patchy writing, though, he just comes across as totally delusional. And maybe he's superficial, he's narcissistic. That wouldn't matter for a politician or for a political player. But I can't actually tell if the author is trying to make him seem superficial, narcissistic, and ineffective. If he is trying to do that, he's doing a very good job. But at this point, I can't tell what he's doing, and Oscar's annoying, and his goddamn Krewe are even more annoying. In as much as they even exist, because let's face it, we don't see any of them. I can't remember any of their names. You see a tiny monologue of them every now and then. Okay, so Greta is one of the scientists in the biodome. She has a good rant on the de-evolution of scientific reserves. That was pretty good. I think that was around page 90. And when Oscar is going into the biodome, there's actually a point where another scientist gets to give a really interesting monologue on thermoextremophiles. That's bacteria that live in extreme temperatures, such as calderas of volcanoes and stuff. That was good. But again, there's no monologue. There's no dialogue. It's just one person monologuing after another. That's not good writing, Sterling. It's not. Then around about 100, we get 2 paragraphs about knowledge and rhetoric, and they're pretty good. As rhetoric goes, they're all pretty good. I mean, it's not terrible writing, it's just patchy. It's not a bad background, it's just irrelevant, and there's no consistent story. I still don't know what the story is. There's none of the actual marks of a story. There's no progression of anything. Oscar wants to be in politics. Well, he's got, what is it, 489 pages to do. Am I going to read this much of stereotypes, monologuing, and weird arrhythmic literature to find out if he makes it in politics? No, because I don't care. Oscar doesn't feel like a real person. Why should I care what happens to him? Okay, so the underlying theories of science, when you get to see a little bit of them every now and then, are good. If I ever care enough about reading hundreds of pages of weirdness, I might very well come back to it. I guess I can see why some people might have liked it. I've got no idea why it won an award. I've absolutely no idea. So, science and politics. Let me just read you a couple of paragraphs. Page 105, down the bottom. This was not to say that science itself was politics. Scientific knowledge was profoundly different from political ideology. Science was an intellectual system producing objective data about the nature of the universe. Science involved falsifiable hypotheses, reproducible results, and rigorous experimental verification. Scientific knowledge itself wasn't a political construct any more than element 79 in the periodic table was a political construct. But the things people did with science were every bit as political as the things people did with gold. Oscar had devoted many fascinated hours to study of the scientific community and its weirdly orthogonal power structure. The genuine work of science struck him as sadly geekish and tedious, but he was always charmed by an arcane political arrangement. So basically, this is a book that purports to be about politics and science. I like science. I don't think it does the science part very well. The underlying concepts are there, but they aren't brought into the story in a meaningful way. I'm not sure that there is a meaningful story at all. There certainly aren't meaningful characters, and dialogue doesn't exist. Where you have a monologue about science, I'm interested. Where you've got a monologue about politics, I am bored. I can't even tell if the politics are meant to be realistic or relevant. I can't even slightly guess if they are based in real political theory or not, and I don't care. The welding of the politics onto the science seems artificial, and the grafting doesn't work. It's rotting. It's a graft that is going downhill. The only actual interesting part about Oscar is his background story, and that's another scientific theory, kind of. It's very science fiction-y. So these days we've got puppy farms and puppy mills. In Oscar's universe, there was widespread male sterility in the United States due to pesticides, I think it was. And as a result, a whole heap of South American cartels started up baby factories. They did fetus factories, baby factories. They used genetic engineering to make the fetuses more viable, and they tried in vitro rearing of children as well. Oscar came from one of these baby farms, and he ended up in an orphanage in Holland and then somehow was adopted into America. There's a weird sort of political organization. China is the great opponent to America, and the Dutch seem to have a major argument with America as well. It's all just nebulous. There's some great ideas in there, but they've never materialized into an actual story. And I am bored with skim reading through the political monologues, and I doubt if I have read this far into it. 135 pages. That's a serious commitment of my reading time. And I don't imagine that the remaining few hundred pages are going to provide any more enjoyment. So, do not finish page 135. I might come back to it one day if I'm feeling seriously in need of mental punishment for something. I hope I don't. I'm about to go away somewhere where I need an actual book that I can actually read and enjoy, and this isn't it. There's nothing in it to enjoy, and I seriously don't understand why the Arthur C. Clarke committee voted for it. If someone does understand why, please tell me. If Bruce Sterling should ever see this, which I seriously doubt, no offense, you have written some other good books. One of my favorite ones here, Heavy Weather, not this one.